What would you get if Halloween and Friday the 13th met in an aerobics class, got married and had a baby? That's right, American Horror Story 1984. This first episode opens with a flashback to 1970. Camp Camp Redwood. We see camp counselors making out and up to naughty shenanigans. And true to the genre, teenagers who are up to naughty things and doing drugs are of course quickly attacked and dispatched of by Mr Jingles, who then proceeds to murder all the inhabitants of Camp Redwood. We then cut to a 1984 aerobics class where we meet some familiar and not so familiar faces. We are introduced to, mid-workout, Xavier, Montana, Ray, Chet and Brooke. We are then treated to an amazing 1980s style VHS intro with incredible synth music that perfectly captures the time period, with an awesome twist on the AHS theme music, redone in pop 80s synth, and is by far some of the best music I have heard for American Horror Story in a few seasons. Brooke is quickly befriended by Montana, who invites her to Camp Redwood. Brooke declines the offer, and later that night is attacked by a man who comes through her open window. This man is none other than the Nightstalker, Richie Ramirez. Fun fact, there really was a serial killer called the Nightstalker, and he really was called Richard Ramirez. He murdered 14 people spanning 1984 to 1985. If you read up about Richard Ramirez, aka the Nightstalker, it may offer some insights into this season. For example, Richard was strongly influenced by his older cousin, who was a Vietnam veteran. Of course, we learn through campfire scary tales that Mr Jingles is actually a Vietnam veteran. This begs the question, is the series of events that led Brooke to Camp Redwood a coincidence? Is the Nightstalker, who turns up at the end of this episode, actually related to Mr Jingles? I'm not very good at making predictions with American Horror Story, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. But in true tradition of the show, I'm sure there is something deeper going on here. Was the hitchhiker that they hit actually murdered? Are they just playing games with Brooke's head? So far, this episode has me totally hooked to the new season, and I have high hopes for it. They seem to have introduced the character of Mr Jingles and his murderous rampages very early on in the show. I'm sure this will end up in a twist that none of us foresee. There were many references in this episode. Of course, to Halloween and Friday the 13th were the obvious ones. From Camp Redwood itself, which very much resembles Camp Crystal Lake, to the scene at the mental hospital, which of course mirrors a scene in Halloween. Mr Jingles' own escape mirroring that of Michael Myers. I'm curious to hear in the comments section if you guys have any predictions for this season, as I'm guessing Halloween and Friday the 13th aren't the only two horror movies that American Horror Story will pay homage to this season. I'm actually hoping for a bit of a sci-fi twist, possibly aliens, possibly robots. Or as my good friend Evil Stevel suggested, alien robots. Nothing would delight me more. What other 80s tropes can you guys think of that would fit perfectly into this season of American Horror Story? I do love seeing John Carroll Lynch in the part of Mr Jingles. He's such a huge and threatening character, and he definitely has a presence that lends itself to that of a serial killer. This will also be apparently the first season that Evan Peters won't be appearing in, sadly. Although I am very much delighted in all the other choices for the other cast members, as they captured that 80s vibe so perfectly. This is a very quick ink sketch, using a combination of dip pens, paintbrush, with inks of course, and a little bit of Sharpie. It took about an hour and a half, and is of Mr Jingles carrying a human head, sans ears. Take note, of course, of his necklace of ears around his neck. The ear necklace is, of course, a reference to Universal Soldier, another 80s great. As I said before, I cannot wait to see what this series has in store for us. I'm sure there's many twists and turns and references to follow. And I'm thoroughly loving this slasher vibe. I'll see you all later in the week for another breakdown into American Horror Story 1984. as of course we'll have episode 2 out on Thursday. We also have coming up very soon Castle Rock Season 2, which is out on the 23rd of October, and I'm very much looking forward to that as well. As American Horror Story and Castle Rock are two of my favourite horror TV series. I hope you're all safe and well during this upcoming Halloween season. This has been Kevin for The Art of Horror. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.
Rate, comment, subscribe.